I just had a positive interaction with a black guy. That's the first positive interaction I think I've had with them. Shit. Outside of like stores, like they're working at a store and they kind of have to be nice to me. But it was like he's a big guy sitting on one of these walls here. I'm just walking by and I hear this very soft voice going, "Sir, sir." I looked, I'm like, that's not him, is it? It was him. Big guy, very soft voice. I think he was a little spicy, you know, light in the loafers. I'm not gonna go down the list, but yeah, nice guy. He's nice. I was talking to him for a few minutes. I think because he saw me helping out another guy, one of my street contacts here, the guys I like to keep track of. You know, while I do give them a couple bucks and cigarettes and stuff, it's mainly for selfish reasons. They see everything that goes on out here. So whether it's something with the moving of people, which is always of interest to me, just, you know, because I'm just a little nosy, or the more important thing, the spiritual aspect, demonic activity. This one particular guy I was talking to is keyed up into that. But like a lot of these guys, some days he's there, some days he's not, some days, you know, even if you weren't kind of a little lost in the head, being out here will certainly make you that way. It's the Ouroboros of homelessness and mental health issues, you know. I gotta throw a quarter into this thing and then we can, let me see, it's the only kind of OCD thing I still do. Once I learned none of the shit works that way, I stopped doing that light switch kind of shit. Going into Target for a minute. I'll write out. Not like you're fucking waiting or something. Just pick this up. Had a street vendor. The studs in red. You find some cool shit walking around sometimes. They have a lot of like local places, like stands set up over by International Marketplace. Actually behind the Ross, there's these little like they've been there forever. These little stands that I stop in and get jewelry and stuff from. That's where I get the rings that I have and some of the other knickknacks. But every once in a while there'll be a guy around with like a box out of something. And I always stop to look and yeah. I don't know what you're gonna do with all that information, but there you go. Yeah, the thing about the homeless people I was talking about, it's like the people will do stuff in front of them because sadly they don't see them as like real people. Like they think like, oh, this guy, we can do anything from. I've heard people do it before. Like I've been around people that like, you know, want to smoke a joint or whatever, and there'll be someone there and they'll be like, no, don't worry, he's like this homeless guy. It's like, well, I don't know. It's always weird. It's weird because it's like, well, it's still a person, and I don't even mean that in a way like he's still a person. I mean, he's still someone that could tell like a cop or something like, hey, those guys over there fucking doing drugs. I mean, people just don't. It's almost in the way the military, the higher ups, kind of look at their soldiers. I've never been in the military, but you know, I come from a family that has my dad, my uncles, my cousins. And it's almost like, I don't know if they have to do it in higher ranks, but they almost like dehumanize the people under them. I think they kind of have to because, you know, sometimes they get in a situation where they have to order them over the hill, you know. But but they also kind of, when the soldiers are around, they don't, like, they just kind of do whatever. They don't see them as anything. It's weird. I mean, I don't feel that way about soldiers. I see soldiers and usually, you know, I give them a lot of room. Same thing with cops, you know. Not to do anything wrong, but I just had a thought one night. We were at Fort Druzy, which isn't far from me, and we were sitting on a thing at night, and it was night, you know. And me and my friend were too far into the fort or the land, and I think there's hours on it. And a couple soldiers came around on a golf cart buggy thing just to see what we were doing. Like they weren't, you know, they weren't there to like bust us or anything, but I ended up getting a guy into a conversation about the Rothschild banking clan and all this crazy stuff. And they must have thought it was insane, but they were nice about it. They either were interested or feigned interest and telling them all this stuff, and then I start moving into things that are related to the military. My friend I was with also knows a lot of stuff too, and we were just like red pilling him about the control systems in the United States that they work for, and it was just funny, you know. So I mean, I don't like run from cops or military, but you know, why be around them if you don't have to? You never know. You know, you could very easy to get caught up in things here. You know, they're constantly nonsense vortexes spinning around out here, and if you stay around them too long, you're very likely to get spun up. Found this guy the other night. I think someone linked his channel to me somewhere. But anyway, he's a great video. Again, another one of these guys that like sums up in 5 minutes what I shaggy dog story over a period of weeks to try to get out. He says a lot of stuff I say in especially in relation to how you're being kind of watched or scored. He was framing it like there's an invisible race of people that are viewing you, watching your every move, to try to see if you are adequate to evolve, I guess, somehow, or your consciousness. And he mentioned, yeah, you can call it God if you want. And that's what I do. I call it God because it is God, you know. There's a lot of people that do talk about this kind of stuff but don't make the connection to the Lord, and, you know, whatever, that's fine. It's, you know, it's their thing. But he talks about how, you know, you're being measured, you're being watched, you're being scored. And I always say that too. Like, God's always watching. And unfortunately, the other side watches too. And they can get you caught up in some stuff. Like, you start a day off and like things are going bad for you. Hey, what's going on, man? How you doing? Good to see you.
Good to see you, man.
Handing out some flyers tonight up there?
Yeah.
All right. Good to see you, man.
Good to see you.
So sometimes you'll start off a day and like you'll lose. He didn't talk about this, but it reminded me of this thing I go into sometimes, talk about sometimes. And you'll wake up and you can't find your keys. And you're like, oh, fuck, where are my keys? And the next thing you know, you only have one sock. And then you find the fucking keys. You find the sock. And then you find you're locked out of the bathroom or something. And one little thing will just turn to another little thing. And you feel like you're on like a path, or you're spiraling. And it's important to kind of stop and pull yourself out of that, because your unhappiness or you getting mad about it will feed into it and make it worse and worse and worse. In the same way, though, some days things always go well for you and they seem to be flowing along nicely. He posited that this is done purposely, just to see how you will handle yourself. And like I've always said, the test, as it is, isn't so much about passing or failing. It's all about your behavior during the test. And he says, in his opinion, that's indeed what is being looked at here, like how you handle the situations that are being thrown at you, to see if you will be conscious enough to be able to transcend this point or this area. Pretty interesting stuff. It's cool. It's like another one of those things like, wow, he just said that so economically, you know what I mean? Whereas I'll sometimes get caught up in this in the minutia of things, or if I happen to fucking see a sign in front of a place, I get derailed talking about it and then have to come back to it. But yeah, I'll put his link down below. He's got a lot of cool stuff on there, like real interesting stuff. And in the beginning, he's like, I'm just going to start talking about this straight up. You know, it's going to sound weird or whatever. I'm not going to. And I know what he means. Like, when I first started doing this years ago, I would have all these kind of whacked out thoughts or theories or ideas or information that I was getting, where I'd be getting like these kind of downloads. In fact, the earliest videos in this channel were me like at 3 in the morning getting this thing in my head, like, oh god, I have to make a note of this, I have to make a video note of this. And it'd be like, all right, I figured out why dolphins try to talk to humans, or whatever thing pops in my head, found information or something I realized through quiet reflection. And but when I started doing longer videos and sort of trying to talk to people instead of just making notes for myself, it was like I always felt like I had to build up to one of these kind of ideas or couch it with a bunch of other stuff. And it was always like, yeah, I know this sounds kind of schizo, but so now with people talking more about this stuff, you can kind of just get to it. And that's how he starts out the videos. I'm trying to get to it. You're being watched. Everything you do is being watched. And yeah, I need to try to keep cutting to the stuff and not worry about what's the built-in fucking programming. Like even taught, everyone's been taught that thinking about certain things or some of the stuff I talk about makes you a complete crazy person. That's going away now. More and more, as people see everything falling apart around them, they start to question more. Like, what? Why is this happening? And you start thinking about stuff, and you get into that sort of quiet reflection space. Speaking of the quiet reflection space, I want to talk more about that. I'm just going to pop in the Target for a second. So that in-between place, in between when you're asleep and when you're not, you're fading in that fading spot. That's a real good way to kind of traverse this world and the other worlds, the other frequencies, or if you want to use the word dimensions. When first time I was in the nut hut, to get out quicker, you had the more programs you did, the more workshops you did, you'd get a faster release. So they would have student doctors coming in, you know, to observe the patients. So on the days the doctors would come in, it was like Wednesday and Friday, I would just spend all day with these different doctors. And they were getting credit for their classes or whatever, studying. But you just talk about whatever. And there was a doctor there that was telling me about Salvador Dali, where he knew about how special that area was between being awake and being asleep, and he'd try to get ideas from it. The way he would do it is he'd sit in his chair when he was very tired, and he'd hold a spoon in his hand, and he would just let himself drift and just open himself up. And when he heard the spoon hit the ground, he would know that he had fallen asleep all the way. And that's how he would keep in that state. Over the years, a lot of stuff, contacts. I get contacts and stuff through that sort of zone. And I thought about it again because yesterday, for the first time in a long time, I had what this thing I get is mainly audio things. People calling my name, always saying my name. Like I'll be almost falling asleep and Ginny, James, all different ways of saying it. In voices that sound familiar, but no one I can quite point out. And I was kind of in that state yesterday, and I was just thinking of the subject when I heard Ginny, like that. Like, and you hear it, not like you hear your own inner dialogue, or even if you're trying to imagine like a scene from a movie or something. It's almost like, it's not direct to brain CIA type sounding stuff either. It's like it's in your head, and it's like it's hard to explain exactly what the sound is. It has a radio type situation going on with it. Like, you know, when you're in between channels and you're trying to get a station in, it has a little bit of that, but it's just someone saying my name. And it used to happen all the time since I was a little kid. I'd run out of my bedroom at night to my parents in the living room going, "Well, what do you want?" And they'd be like, "No one was calling you, you psycho." And I'd go back in bed, and sometimes it would keep happening again. And occasionally, well, not occasionally, a lot, I get visuals too. But what I was going to say, the rarity is getting my name and a visual at the same time. I never see who's speaking it, but I'll have a visual of something like a room or a place. Mainly what I get, and I still get them, is in my mind with my eyes closed. It'll just start a figure or a portal looking thing will start taking shape. Like I see something in my mind, like it starts like going like blah, 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 and then a face will emerge from it. Strangers, people I don't know. Sometimes they look mean. Sometimes they're weird and distorted. Sometimes I feel like they're trying to scare me or something. And they'll just be looking at me, like staring right at me. Faces, different faces. People. No one familiar. Almost as if they're looking in a hole in the fabric of my world and theirs, and they're just looking in on me. And sometimes I do it to them, but I don't know how exactly it happens because it starts going the same way. My eyes closed, it's all dark, and I got like this amorphous kind of color blob. It almost looks like something from like, you know what it reminds me of? If you've ever seen the Attack of the Clones, Star Wars Episode 2 from the early aughts, where Anakin is having those dreams about Padme dying, and it's like the dream is here, but there's all this kind of blobbish, kind of blurry stuff around it. That's as close as I can get to describing it. But a lot of times I'll look in at people, but they don't see me. Like I'm just kind of, I'll get a vision of someone like just walking somewhere. I don't usually see the body. It's usually just the bust area, like the head and the neck and maybe upper chest. And one that stuck in my mind. Now what happens too is I always get these when I'm in between sleeping and awake. So the next day I never remember all this shit. It's very rare that I remember it. You know, a lot of times, no matter how kooky it is, when you're in that state, the in-between dream and awake, your memory retention is shit. And the more you move in to the dream state, the harder it is to remember anything. It's that same fucking juice they hit you with when you're born so that you forget everything up until that point. And people always say like, well, why would they want you to forget what you're doing or what your mission was here? And because it's like a test, you know? And if you knew you were being tested, then it wouldn't be a fucking test. But so I had a really sharp one, a strong one, and when I get them, I usually try to stare right at them at first because it's instinctual. I'm just like, oh wow, what's that? Sometimes I'll let Nia know that it's happening. She usually doesn't care. I'm like, Nia, I'm having a vision. Okay, she's trying to sleep next to me or something. So I had a view. I was looking in on a woman who looked like she was like, I don't know why I want to say air traffic controller or something. But she had people sitting around her working, and she was at work. It was like she was directing something. I don't know what it was, but the view of this I seen was mainly just her upper body, and I could tell there were people around her that were working, and she was kind of like directing them, sort of. And I'm looking at her, and she has short black hair, almost like a bob kind of cut. She's looking down at what the people around her are doing, almost like they're don't know what, like air traffic controllers or something. I don't know, something, NASA. And, well, they don't really do real air traffic control, but if NASA was real, if they were really actually dealing with flying machines. And I'm looking at her for a few seconds, and then she looks up at me and locks eyes with me. Like she knew I was looking at her. She sensed I was looking at her. And I broke out of it. I got out of it. I snapped out of it. It was really weird because it's like, so sometimes they're looking at me, and sometimes, I don't know how, I end up looking at them. And then sometimes I have another kind of semi-related sort of thing where I'm seeing stuff that isn't around me. The last time this happened was, that I can remember clearly, it was about a year ago now, because it was on Christmas time. And I was laying in bed, kind of just chilling, like sort of phasing in and out, and he was sitting beside me. And I was asking her, or she asked me if there was, if I should go get cigarettes or something like that before everything closed. And as I'm sleeping, sometimes, you just go right into a scenario, and then right back here. I found myself walking down the street over where the direction I just came from, with a corner store, a liquor store. And I just laying in bed, I found myself walking around the corner, and I looked over at it and saw that it was closed. And I'm like, oh, it's closed. And then I got up like, oh wow, I dreamed that happened. And I looked at the time, and it was closed. It felt like I went over there and checked. I don't know how that would happen, but that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. I've had other instances of doing that too. It's like a remote viewing, but I've always been able to do that since I was a little kid. Also, when I was a little kid, when I'd be laying in bed, when in the in-between space, I'd be able to see things that are here that you couldn't see. You see these like kind of not crab people, but like crabs, the sea animal. And they were bright orange glowing crabs. I remember this. I used to see them in my room as a kid. And I was a real young kid because I still had that bed with the bars on it, And I had my door closed because my parents used to close me in there because they would be loud. They didn't want to wake me up. And they would, I'd see them slowly climbing all around my wall. And I'd start freaking out. I'd see them half asleep, and the more I woke up, the more I'd freak out, the more awake I would get, and then they would vanish. I have endless stories like that. I don't think I've ever told anyone about any of this, except Nia, because she's in bed when I'm like, Nia, I'm seeing something. It's a guy. He looks like Willem Dafoe. Crazy, but that's how it goes. Millions of people, Willem Dafoe. And the harder I look at it, the more it vanishes. The best way I found, when I remember, is to kind of look at it peripherally. Like, instead of looking straight on at the faces, I kind of turn my head. But yeah, it's rare to get sound in an image at the same time. And when I do, it's never a person. So I never see these people that are calling my name. Like I said, it's all different versions of my name. Sometimes multiple times in a row. And yeah, it's like it's not exactly like someone beaming into my head, but it's not close to that. It's not the room. It's not my inner monologue, or you know what I mean? It's not an inner dialogue. It's just fucking weird. So yeah, I had all that stuff going on. So that's notes for the gate people. I think that's probably one of the things you try to discern too. I think that's why you had the headphones and the scopolamine, the drug that makes you forget things, to try to get you in that state, possibly, because when you're in that state, like when you go to bed at night, when you leave your body, when you go to bed. You peace out of it. But you're connected by a thread. This has been depicted in art throughout the centuries. Looks a little bit something like this. And it comes through your navel. That's your cord, your tether to here. And when you're sleeping, you always leave your body. Because whatever process they need to do to you inside your system, you can't be in there when they're doing it. I don't know why. Maybe it's a clue as to what they're doing. I haven't been able to figure it out in years. I've known about this, and you know, that's why, like, sometimes when you, oh, and here's what happens. What you do is you stay half your height next to your body. Like, you float out, you know, about, like, so I would float 3 feet away from myself. Well, 2 feet, and I'm like 5'10", almost 6 feet. Just 2 really big inches. That's what I tell the ladies. It's 2 really big inches. Yeah, so sometimes you'll feel like you'll wake up, like, grabbing the side of your bed, like you're falling. That's just you coming back into your body. It's just you slamming back in there. Because you're out of it when you're sleeping. And that's why you kind of sometimes feel like you're floating. And a lot of people fly in their dreams, and I do too. I used to lucid dream all the time. I haven't in many years. I have some theories as to why that might be, but I used to lucid dream all the time. As soon as I'd be dreaming, I'd be like, all right. And then I'd be, oh yeah, I can fly. And like the sensation of flying, when you start flying, it's so familiar. It's so familiar. It's like, oh yeah, this is how you do it, yeah. How come I can't always do this, you know? You feel the sort of buoyancy, and the air kind of takes you, but you're controlling it. It's just very natural, you know. I experience things in my dreams that, you know, obviously you don't experience here in the hard 3D realm we're in here on the screen. But yeah, that's a whole nother thing, the whole dreaming, sleeping situation, and why I think they make you sleep, they make you tired so that you'll get out of your body for them so that they can get in. And I think it's kind of what it is to reaffix your tether to this world, to fix something about the screen. So for a time they need you out of the body to do something in there, whatever it is. I'm not, you know, I have no idea. But yeah, it's kind of freaky shit. It's basically, that's what I sum it out by that. Yeah, there's a lot more to that. There's a couple of things I want to touch on, but I'm going to save it all for tomorrow. I got a whole lot. I've been looking into sleep again. I'm not trying to defeat it. I'm not trying to beat sleep like I used to. I used to run little experiments here, and to tell you how great it was going to be, and how I think I finally done it, and then I have to sheepishly come on the next day and explain why it didn't work. Yeah, maybe, I mean, that's kind of a bit ambitious. I'm going to defeat sleep, but you know, you fucking shoot for the moon, you know, you might hit a star. Till next time, don't blame the teacher, blame the school.